Welcome back to the EU Spectator, ladies and gentlemen, where we delve into the pressing issues shaping the European Union's landscape. I'm your host, Catalin Gabriel Done, and today we have the privilege of hosting a prominent figure in European affairs, my friend Aleksandra Palkova. Aleksandra wears many hats, serving as the head of the EU program at the Latvian Institute of International Affairs and holding a senior researcher position at Riga University. And also, her expertise lies in the intersections of democracy and security, making her a pivotal voice in shaping European policies. Notably, I think Aleksandra's contribution extend beyond academia as an associate researcher at the European Council on Foreign Relations. She's played a vital role in crafting analyses that inform decision-making within the European Commission and the European Parliament. And today, Aleksandra joins us to discuss crucial topics concerning European security policy, the prospect of a European common army, and also the imperative need for security in the Baltic region. So without further ado, let's dive into the conversation and gain insights from Aleksandra's wealth of expertise. Welcome, Aleksandra, and thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting. I'm sure we'll have excellent debate.
I'm sure of that. So, Aleksandra, in recent years, the European Union has been navigating a complex landscape of security challenges, with the ongoing conflict in Ukraine serving as a stark reminder for the importance of a robust European security policy. The perspectives on the war in Ukraine are likely to significantly influence the upcoming strategy of the new European Parliament regarding security and establishment of a common army. The conflict has underscored the vulnerabilities in Europe's security architecture, promoting calls for a more unified and assertive approach to defense. France's ambitions to send soldiers to support Ukraine forces on the battlefield highlights the country's commitment to upholding European security interests and its willingness to take concrete action in response to threats on the continent. Macron's proactive stance reflects France's desire to play a leading role in shaping European security policies and addressing also regional challenges head-on. So, how do you assess the effectiveness of the EU's current security policies in addressing the challenges posed by the conflict in Ukraine?
Indeed. Well, first of all, absolutely crucial issue and a crucial question to talk about. And there is, at least from what you identified, 4 different ways how we can approach this. Of course, what you also mentioned and highlight about Macron's and France's motivation to be the leading power within the EU towards the common defense security policy and the defense sector of the EU was there for quite a long time. Actually, it's more connected than also you mentioned the European army. It is more connected to the strategic autonomy, which has been a debate since 2016, and it was there. And there is a lot of catalysts which contributed to this topic. And it's not only war in Ukraine, which I will talk about that in a couple of minutes, but it's also United States. The Trump election and United Kingdom leaving EU, it all was a small catalyst which only deepens the debate on the EU security and defense field. Looking what we have right now, it's strategically geopolitical issues within the EU. We indeed see the tendency of EU growing up from the normative power to become a more geopolitical power with the strength as well in the security. And I would even highlight here, it's not only about the conversation on the EU army, because you have to keep in mind that defense and security will be always an intergovernmental issue for the member states. And there is a lot of national, let's call it egos of the member states as well, but it's more about sovereignty and it's about the beliefs. So for instance, coming from the Baltic region and Nordic countries, indeed, you will see immediately a reaction of the Baltic countries for the EU army question as an immediate red flag. No. Reason behind that, of course, because for the countries such as Poland, such as Baltic states, the NATO is an ultimate cornerstone of the security. And this is the reason why there is no debate on the question of EU leading things in the security and defense. However, there is plenty of opportunities and initiatives within the EU sector, even the recent published EDIP strategy, which in my opinion is even more beneficial than as a practical mechanism to support the companies of the defense and collaboration in the defense sector between the EU countries, companies related to the defense and security, and this is a granting opportunities for them to booster the industries. Because when we look on the Ukraine as a current stance, we can divide it into two categories. Actually three categories. One is, of course, public support, that we have to deal with the Ukraine fatigue. And right now it's an concern for the parliamentarians, and this will be absolutely in the parliament, upcoming parliament elections, as one of the issues to address, how we can actually come back to and counterattack the Ukraine fatigue question in the society. This is what they are dealing. But then there is two practical sides. One of them is how we can practically help the Ukraine. Of course, there is a budget, there is money which we can send. There is volunteers working with that, but it's also about defense industry. And this is where we can see that there is a lack of maybe working together, collaborating before that there wasn't not alignment between NATO and EU working in this field together. And this is what we can actually see and trace for the past 2 years, that with the EU publishing and NATO publishing new strategic concept from the NATO side, but for us it was strategic compass of the EU, there was alignment and the willingness to align the policies to actually resolve the questions on the political sphere for the countries, again, coming back to the Poland and Baltics and other countries who have doubts about EU trying to replace NATO, because there is a countries and their political willingness to support that. And there is a new initiative coming from the EU side on a different platforms. So this second priority was the political will to help Ukraine and how to motivate the countries and political for those countries where is the sovereignty of the defense issues and trust towards NATO is bigger, how to ensure that they are on the same table. And then there is a third field, which is where we are coming back to your question on the Ukraine. It's again how to boost our industry sector, because there, even if EU promised to deliver the certain amount of shells towards Ukraine, industry is not there. We have to wait at least years while we can actually build the capacity to deliver weapons, to deliver shells, to actually boost it up. So those that kind of the initiatives, which is example of the EDIP and other things, they are more practically helpful than if we talk about EU army itself.
So, because you mentioned, and thank you very much for this, you mentioned that our common European security policy is and maybe will remain an intergovernmental policy. What role do you see for the European Parliament in shaping a cohesive and comprehensive European security policy, particularly in the light of in the light of upcoming elections, and of course in the light of increasing calls for European common army?
I think that's, well, again, two dimensions how we can discuss it. I think for the European Parliament in the defense role here is quite limited. So we are more talking about European Defense Agency, and even in the External Action Service, who are planning war foreign priorities and security priorities as a strategies, and the practical implementation of the EU defense sector goes through the European Defense Agency, who has the chance. But politically speaking, I think what European Parliament could do is absolutely try to, again, it depends on the country region, and because for coming from the Baltic region, I know that the parliamentarians will not use the defense sector as any case of the priority or campaign for EU elections. What is important in Latvia in this case for the upcoming parliamentarian elections, this is partial enlargement as an issue, because again, for our region, Ukraine is a country which we have to talk about, and this will be the case of the even upcoming elections. And then there is, of course, future opportunities towards the advancement of the technology, which can be partially aligned with the defense. You can see how they can do that, but they will not do that because you have to understand the rhetorics in Latvia. The society is still more interested in the national elections than it is about talking about European election. And then for the past years, even in the previous election, the commitment from the society side to go and vote for elections was always below 50% bar. So this is the showcase to understand that for our parliamentarians, EU Parliament elections is not the key core priority, and they will still opt to present in the parliamentarian elections for the EU Parliament more national-wise debate than the parliamentarian EU debate. So questions as a rule of law, democracy will not appear there. Questions related to the EU and climate change will also not appear there. It's more the nationalistic debate on securing the things. However, on the other note, of course, if we talk about the governments and this is interesting where we're stepping right now, because frankly, you see, not frankly, but you see that in the governments of Netherlands, in the Sweden, you see the rising of the right wing. And this is what I think we have to be concerned more than the talking about defense issues in the parliamentarian campaigns, because I think that you will not see defense issues in the upcoming parliamentarian elections. You will see, of course, Ukraine, enlargement, rule of law, democracy, migration, absolutely as an issues. You can try to align those issues to the defense, and because of course migration issue will align with the defense and security and the borders, but this is how the spillover from the one field to another comes, so it's natural. And to try maybe to answer your initial question, what the parliament can do, I think what is important is actually, no matter how the campaigns for the parliamentarians will be aligned, it's important that the parliament in the end, when it will be elected, actually focuses back on the fatigue issues and they bring back the defense issues. Because again, we have seen this year so many developments, even in the European Commission side, the future of the establishment of the defense commissioner. And I'm certain that it will be established. I'm certain that next year we will see the new European Defense Commissioner as a new role to actually have. Question there would be, would that be more intergovernmental commissioner as it is with the health commissioner? Or it will be a practical commissioner and more geopolitical one who will have the capacity. So it's an interesting time we are living right now.
Yeah, and it's very important for us and also very interesting how our countries will act as pivotal actors in the European politics, because You're right, here in our part of Europe, in the Eastern and Southeastern Europe, our topics of campaign are more on domestic policies, not on the European. But this is very interesting for Latvia because we both know that the security landscape in the Baltic region has been significantly impacted by Putin's offensive in Ukraine, with neighboring countries experiencing heightened concerns over potential spillover effects, as you mentioned. For example, the annexation of Crimea and ongoing conflict in eastern Ukraine have raised alarm bells among Baltic states, and especially in Latvia, intensifying fears of Russian aggression and territorial incursions. This has prompted these nations to bolster their defense capabilities and capacity, and deepen security cooperation with NATO allies to deter any potential threats. But however, I think that despite concerned efforts to enhance security in the Baltic Sea region, there are concerns over the lack of coordination between the region of the Black Sea and the Baltic Sea. While both areas face similar challenges posed by Russian assertiveness and Russian threats, there has been limited cooperation and alignment of strategies between Baltic and Black Sea states. I think this fragmentation hampers the effectiveness of collective security measures, and levels gaps that could be explored by hostile actors. But Aleksandra, how can the Baltic in this situation, how can the Baltic and Black Sea regions enhance cooperation to strengthen their collective security posture in the face of Russian aggression?
Well, again, a really good question, and a lot of aspects to tackle. But I think immediate my answer would be such as initiatives as a 3Cs initiative.
Mm-hmm.
There is a different platforms how countries actually are collaborating, and 3Cs initiative is absolutely one of the platforms where we see a good collaboration between not only the decision makers but also NGOs and the practical organizations who are working in order to foster the defense capabilities. But to answer maybe on a practical level, what I see is that we also have to be realistic here, and this is normal. As you call it fragmentation, I would call it a bit differently. I would say that it's normal for the countries, given the difference in the regions, to collaborate on the things which they are more aligned to. For instance, Baltics is absolutely collaborating with the Poland and the Nordic countries, and the Poland then collaborate with the countries which are close to them, which includes also, again, we come back to the 3Cs initiative, but this is how geographically you can see the normal chain of the countries and how they collaborate with the regional aspects. And here again, I would say that EU partially plays a role, but it's all together with the NATO. Then we have a practical initiative for the countries. And somewhere, again, we come back to the enlargement question, that enlargement is fostering this collaboration, because again, southern countries and east countries and the Baltic countries, Nordic countries, they do realize that the enlargement goes both ways. It's not only Eastern Partnership as it was before, of course, excluding right now Russia and Belarus, but it's also Western Balkans. And in case of this advancement of the toolbox for the enlargement countries, it creates a platform for us to collaborate, because enlargement right now is not only about the fundamentals, but is also about the security. It's about practical vulnerability. Everything what is happening right now with Georgia and the geopoliticized questions there. Example of the Transnistria, and so many vulnerabilities there, that it's not only about Ukraine, it's about our geostrategic positions in that region, and the EU absolutely understand that, and the countries within the EU also understands that it is not anymore war gray zones which we have to control. It's already a practical borders which we do have to control, and here is an important role of the EU absolutely as an actor in the region, because NATO, even if NATO has open door policy, it has the limitations. Absolutely, there is a limitations which NATO will not cross as a line. But this is absolutely advancement for EU to take place. And this is the reason why NATO to collaborate together with EU on these issues, because NATO sees its limitations in the region of the enlarging countries. And it's natural then for EU to step in, and it's actually good for that we have to understand that EU not only good for the EU, but the EU have to step in, because there is no other actor. Otherwise, we will have again China and Russia in the region, which is not in the interest of our countries. And I actually wanted to reflect on your beginning of the question about the Baltics and the advancement of the defense and security. Indeed, it's not only us, of course, Ukraine was as a catalyst for us, but again, two dimensions to tackle. First one, we see absolute advancement of the defense and security issue. And right now, if we were talking in 2023 about GDP of 2.25, we are talking already right now about the budget for 2024 of 2.4 and for 2025, 2.5, which for a small country as us, having a population 1.8 billion, it's huge and it's massive. And you have to understand that mentally, the Baltic countries are absolutely on a different scale. And this is when we come back and we can connect it together with what you said about fragmentation. Mentally, our countries, given our history, with the old Soviet Union, Russian imperialistic ideas and deportations, we mentally are on a different scale level than it is for the countries as Belgium, Netherlands, or Luxembourg. We are completely on the other under absolutely mindset. And you have to understand that for us, and this is maybe more for the listeners, is that if we talk about the Baltics and the people in the Baltic states, and especially people in the Latvia, when you have a border with the country, and our country is a relatively young country, we get re-independent only 30 years ago. When you have history of the country which was all the time threatening you since we get independent, since we joined NATO and EU in 2004, and this year we actually celebrate 20 years anniversary for that. But you constantly live with the threats from the country who says that, well, if you want, we can occupy you once again, as it was before that. And you live that in the constant fear that you have to understand that you are mentally prepared that if that happens, you have to act. And when the war in Ukraine started, people were prepared to leave the country. Of course, there was those who were ready to fight. And this is one of the crucial differences, actually. This year, our country introduced compulsory military service.
Yeah.
So it's also the changing perspective, the mentality of the people that they will have to do the compulsory military service, that there is a defense industry growing up. And threats, constant threats coming up. By the statistics this year, we received 70% more cyber attacks from Russia than it was before that for the past 2 years. It's constant attacks in the cyber, in the constant disinformation for the all Russian speakers, which is our vulnerability in the country. So there is a lot of things happening. So of course for us, and I will just a small note, but also how many Ukrainian refugees and Ukrainians itself were living before the conflict, but also right now in the country. So this all creates a complete different image compared when we compare to the other countries, when we talk about defense industry and sector in the country and about EU developments. Because when you're living in a constant fear and you know that there you have to have a strong back of the allies who can support you, you will choose the strong army instead of the potential collaboration. And this is the reason why countries are, as you said, you called it fragmentation, but I said it's a national interests, and they will collaborate with the countries which is in the region. So for instance, for the Baltic region, it's logical to collaborate with the Nordic countries who share the same territory and the same borders and the same sea, instead of collaborating with the Balkan countries or with the south of the Black Sea, because again, we are talking about security as a first primary priority.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and I'm so happy that you mentioned your country's preparation for the future, because I'm a researcher and an expert in Nordic security and cooperation, and as a Romanian and also as European, I can say that I admire your country and your preparation, and I'm shocked that the people can understand that the absence of a robust coordination between the Baltic and the Black Sea regions undermines actually our efforts to develop a cohesive and a comprehensive approach to countering Russian aggression. It's not only weakness to overall security posture of European countries, but I think also it's about limits the limit of effectiveness of initiatives aimed at determining potential threats and safeguarding regional stability. And as such, there is a pressing need for greater collaboration and why not a greater synergy between those two critical regions to address common security and challenges effectively. But also because your answer anticipated somehow my next question. I'd like to ask you, what role do you see for the European Union in bridging the coordination gap between those two regions and fostering greater unity in addressing shared security concerns?
Absolutely a good question. Again, really good questions. I enjoy it. It's an interesting debate to have. Well,
actually, it's a common concern of our region.
Indeed, it's a common concern. It's just I think that we have to maybe because I come from the region of Latvia, that's why I'm shaped more to think realistically. but I think that EU right now has many spheres to step in and forcefully to step in, and there is many uncertainty as well right now. What will happen? Okay, there is one part of war election coming up in the EU, and there will be new commissioner, but new commission developed in September, hopefully. But we also have to understand that there is United States election, there is Moldovan election, there is national elections in the EU, and this year actually for the elections is the biggest year how many countries across the globe held election. And we are not talking about EU and Europe continent. Look what is happening with the Africa, Middle East. There is a lot of crises, conflicts to step in and for you to work in, and absolutely to then expect right now that there is a practical initiative also developing in the collaboration between the Black Sea and the Baltic Sea, and what is the initiative. I feel that my answer would be that EU is right now focusing on the first key priority, which is to order to secure that region from the both sides. It will be enlargement. It will be the first way how to secure the ground. I don't think that there will be a practical new initiatives coming from for the both regions in case of the collaboration in defense and security strategy, unless the new defense commissioner publishes new way of strategy for EU defense sector, which could be potentially a scenario. But I don't think that the defense right now will be focusing on how to align both regions. It will be more about EU developing the toolkit for its defense sector and how it actually can help the defense industries within EU. Because my personal feeling is that right now EU is stepping in a game of us developing this new, not the strategic autonomy, but new open strategic autonomy, what we have been talking for the past, since actually the presidency of the Spanish presidency. And it connects me, by the way, with the next interesting scenario. Next presidency will be held by Hungary. So again, A lot of uncertainty and questions to deal with in EU itself, and that's why maybe I cannot provide an answer for you on the practical level of the collaboration. But I do believe that, again, coming back to the 3Cs initiative and coming back to the NGOs collaborating with the different platforms, including conferences, including the summits, including the dialogues. This all is a platform for the industries itself, and also the organizations of the it could be an institutional organizations and could be non-governmental ones. But this is the additional source of the collaboration. And we come back to the EU for a Horizon project as well. So more this type of initiatives would be beneficial for the region to collaborate with. And this is what I also tend to see right now from the practical point of view. The new science projects and what the EU is expecting from the new industries is more related to the practical defense capabilities. So, for instance, working on the transistors, working on the critical infrastructure, working on wind offshore, which is connected to the vulnerability in the energy sphere. So different type of the initiatives, including critical raw material, EU is fostering this type of collaboration through the initiative of the granting possibilities. So I think it's more this way of the approach of from the EU side than I can answer your question on the practical way. What will be the EU first type of package? How the collaboration could be fostered? This is my thinking, and this is how I see the things. Of course. Again, I think what we can see, this is also partially reply back what we can trace back from the historical point of view. Even with the neighborhood policies, you always saw the differentiated in neighborhood policies. There was the southern neighborhood policy and there was the Eastern Partnership. So EU, despite the fact that we have this combination of the different initiatives between the regions, EU still itself was trying to keep it as a two different separate regions, because again, also from the geopolitical point of view, different actors require different actions and require different approaches, even though we want to connect them. So it's just the logic of the realistic approach, I guess.
Yeah, and also with your permission, I will add another very important concern, that until the next NATO summit in Washington, we'll need to find consensus on a very hot topic: who will become the new General Secretary of NATO. But as you mentioned, regional security, it's a paramount concern for Latvia and also for the Eastern countries. Eastern European countries, particularly in light of geopolitical tensions in the Baltic Sea and in the Black Sea regions and beyond. With a history of occupation and external threats, I think your country places great importance on collective defense within the framework of NATO and EU security mechanisms, and strengthening defense cooperation, bolstering military capabilities, and enhancing resilience against hybrid threats are central to Latvia's security agenda in the European Parliament and in the European institutions. Also, economic development remains a top priority for your country, for your region, with a focus on promoting growth, job creation, and innovation. As you said, as a small and open economy, Latvia seeks to leverage EU resources and initiatives to enhance competitiveness, attract investment, and foster entrepreneurship, ensuring equitable access to EU funding programs and promoting fair trade practices and key objectives for Latvian policymakers in the European Parliament. But I would like to return to our first discussion about how Latvia will try to influence the EU politics and EU policies. How do you perceive the alignment between Latvian interests and the broader European agenda in the upcoming elections for the European Parliament?
Indeed, good question. Again, I think today it's perfect. It's usually so, and it's absolutely a compliment to you because
thank you very much.
Usually, when you participate in the interviews, they ask you quite an obvious questions, but this time I have to actually think. So thank you. Absolutely great questions. So to maybe reflect also from from what you said in the initial remarks. Indeed, the Baltic states were actually surprised by two factors, because if you remember, there was one narrative published 2 years ago when the war in Ukraine started. It was the Baltics was saying, "We told you so," and the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, actually replied, and she was the one who used that the Baltics warned us, but we haven't listened to them. And this is the problem which we face even before that, since Crimea. We actually warned about Crimea, and this is the reason why we practically were always warning EU, we were always warning NATO. We were always there. We were always saying to Germany about the Nord Stream initiative that this is something which we are warning EU against, and could be potential or vulnerability in the energy sector. We were always there. We were always there. We were initiative. We were always there. We were thoughts and views on the Russia. But the issue is that even if the country and the government and the NGOs were warning, nobody listened. So when you ask the question what we can bring to the agenda of the parliament, it's, of course, we will bring Ukraine as an case priority, because it's a security priority for us. But the question is, would someone listen to us? Because practically speaking, when I can tell and share my experience, when I participate in the parliamentarian debate with NATO parliamentarians, for instance, the representative of countries of Spain or Turkey, when the questions rise up, okay, maybe this is a time that for Ukraine can negotiate peace agreement. If the question from the government side comes to already right now, and the debate was held 3 months ago, if the debate starts with the question mark to the Ukrainian colonel to ask, maybe Ukraine is there to negotiate peace agreements, what is happening in the mindset of the society of that country, and what is happening in the governmental level? And if the country is ready already right now, as a EU country, as a NATO country, to push for the negotiations, country which is in an active war right now, it's a question mark what we as a small country can bring to the big parliamentarian elections. We are, of course, trying to warn that there shouldn't be any negotiation agreement with Russia. We warn about Ukraine and the war. We warn about Russia is not, and this is good for us that actually, if you look on the NATO platform, that Finland and Sweden join NATO. Because now our voices are more stronger, because there is a countries who support us, because they also say that Russia is not the country with whom you can negotiate. And you have to understand that this is the failure of what Macron faced in the beginning of the war. Absolutely. And this is the examples when we as the Baltic countries and together with Poland will try to scream in the united voice that you have to see the clear reality of this issue. So when we talk about issues, what will be aligned in the parliamentarian elections, of course, Ukraine as the first key priority. And then I think what we will do, we will bring economical, technological advancement, because our country together with Estonian country, we were the ones who were leading the technological advancement. By the way, practical example, your ability to travel with the same internet connection tariff to the other EU countries, this is our presidency idea. When we were leading presidency, we secured that the country, so for instance, as a Romanian, you leave the country from Romania and you come to Brussels, you can use your tariffs from the Romania company, not the Brussels one. This is our technological advancement back in 2015 to secure that kind of the idea. So we will absolutely work on our technological campaigns. And by the way, again, for the Baltics, we are already starting to prepare for a presidency, because 2028 will be your presidency. So it's more about us preparing for the EU. And sorry for maybe not answering your question directly, what we can bring, because frankly, I see that even if we want to bring questions, we will still talk about Ukraine, but it's hard for us as a small country to bring something for the election.
I totally agree. I totally agree with you, and don't worry about this, because your answers are so important for us to understand what is happening beyond our region. And because I know that we are close to the end, I will ask you more 5 minutes to discuss a very important issue for the next EU Commission, for the next EU Parliament. And because you mentioned also the cooperation between the Baltic states and the Scandinavian countries, and because we know that the Scandinavian countries will have more greener political agenda for the next EU Parliament, we know that environmental sustainability is emerging as a pressing issue for all European countries, and also for Latvia, as it seeks to address climate changes and promote green transition initiatives. Transistoring to renewable energy sources, improving energy efficiency, as you mentioned, and mitigate environmental risk are key priorities for our countries, and also for Latvia's sustainable development agenda. In the European Parliament, I think your country representatives are likely to advocate for ambitious actions and ambitious policies, and increase support for green investments and ensuring a sustainable future for Latvia and for the European as a whole. So how can Latvia leverage its position within the EU to advance environmental sustainability initiatives and contribute to the EU climate goals? Or maybe your countries it's not very interested in achieving some goals.
It's actually interesting way how to frame it, because from the one point of view, absolutely, our country will always negotiate towards more funding in the green technologies and generally wise more funding opportunities for the companies to invest in, as we are still the beneficiary of the EU funding in a different type of platforms. But what is interesting is that for Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania, the green agenda occurred only in 2019. The reason behind that was that the Green Deal by the European Commission was published in 2019. So our countries changed their priorities immediately, let's call it this way. And so the green agenda occurred in the national governmental election and also in European election only within the Green Deal agenda, which gives you example of the alignments of the country. But it could be practically explained. You have to understand that 50% of our territory is forestries, and if 50% we are considered as a green country, and we have been a top country in the list of the EU as in the list of the green countries and in the list of the climate change advancement countries. We were always in the top of the list. The reason behind that, because we have renewables, so hydroelectric station, we have it there, and we also use the renewable sources and actually this is one of the reasons why strategically talking about geopolitics and the defense sector, again coming back to this core priority. In 2023 February, our government announced that starting from the February, we will not continue buying any gas from Russia. We could make that strategic decision to officially decline any connection to the energy grid of Russia, only because we were green enough and we were energy-wise advanced enough. Of course, it had pressure on our societies, absolutely. But compared to the other EU countries in the core of the EU, France, Germany, we were less vulnerable with our energy grid because we have other opportunities how we can secure it. And So to come back to your question on the green agenda, it will be there, absolutely. And one of the practical developments we will see will be the offshore wind development. We do have it, but there was a new initiatives published by the government. One of them was that we will develop offshore wind not only in the Baltic Sea region together with the Scandinavian countries, but also within the forestries. So the forestries will be now the placement for the wind stations. And there is a different type of platforms how to secure our energy and the green development. By the country supports, honestly, the society considers the country green enough. And what I think we have to advance here is that society doesn't really differentiate climate change green technologies with the simply being a natural friendly country. So they see that as an equal element. Natural friendly, green, it's the same as the climate change. It is the similar way as the green technologies. So I think what we will have to work on, and parliamentarians have to work on that, is to actually explain the differences. And because country supports the green technology advancement and climate change, but they don't differentiate what is it about.
I see. And as we draw our discussion to a close, it's evident that the topic of European security policy, the prospect of a common European army, the security challenges, and also the green agenda in the Baltic region are not only pressing, but also complex and multi-faced. Through our conversation with you, we have gained valuable insights into these critical issues and the various perspectives shaping them. And for me, it's clear that there is a growing recognition of the need for a stronger, a more unified Europe approach to security, particularly in the face of evolving geopolitical and geostrategical threats and challenges. And the ongoing conflict in Ukraine serves as a stark reminder of the importance of solidarity and collective action within the European Union to safeguard peace and stability on the continent. I'd like to extend my sincere thanks to you and also to our listeners for joining us in this important conversation. I need to say that their support is invaluable in helping us continue to bring you insights, discussions on topics that matter. We encourage our listeners to stay engaged with us by subscribing to our YouTube channel, where they can access all our episodes and they can stay updated on the latest developments in European affairs. Together, let's contribute to explore, to analyze, and to contribute to the dialogue shaping the future of the European Union. Aleksandra, thank you very much for your thoughts and for your insights. And I hope that we will see soon.
Thank you so much. A pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much.